the various parables that exist inside the Quran. Some 30 or so parables that exist there. And as we find that naturally the question begins to rise that why these parables are placed inside the Quran, or why so-called so insignificant items are mentioned inside the Quran. And this is exactly what the previous people before, whether it be the Quraysh or other people around the Prophet ﷺ, began to pose this questioning, that these small items that we're going to mention, why is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala discussing these items inside the Quran? That are they really so important? And that's why you find that Islam focuses on two main themes, is ash-shubuhat wa shahawat. These are two main themes of Islam that begins to dismantle and to remove them. That's why you find many ulama write works to remove the doubts, unveil the doubts in a person's aqaid, in their belief, in the environment that they live in. And secondly, doubts that which is the onslaught at the moment and the world at the moment is ash-shahawat, desires, temptations, haram things around us, munkarat, that the level of them is increasing excessively inside our society, that we can't seem to see this challenge, especially upon the youth that we find with the use of social media, the impact it's having on our community. That the social media, they say that right, is an addiction, far more worse than the other addictions inside our society at the moment that we find. And even for the average person as well, the hours that people can just spend scrolling through, going from page to page or from site to site or whatever it may be, wasting their time. And even the quality of the things that are displayed that people may say is some form of entertainment to pass their time. The world of TikTok that we find is pure, even a person who uses these words feels ashamed, stupidity that's being displayed there, and the Muslims are the biggest customers of this, all in passing their time, in joking around, as the world, as we see the bloodshed around us. Not to say that we shouldn't have times of lightheartedness, but we should be a lot more resolution with ourselves. So these temptations, these doubts around us that we need to unveil, that's being surrounded by, that which fits into my rationale, my intellect, I'll accept that as being something plausible. That's why Ali made that famous statement in Sunnah Abi Dawud, لو كان الدين بالرأي. If deen was based upon your aql, your intellect, your rationale, then you'd wipe over the bottom of your sock. But we've been told, there's no ikhtilaf about that. We've all been told to wipe over the top of our sock. So if deen was based upon rationale, on a rationalistic approach, what gets filthy, what gets dirty is the underneath. You need to wipe that, clean that. But the deen says no. It says wipe over the top part of your khuf, your sock, not underneath it. Meaning that the rationale has limits. It has limits that we can't go beyond that limitation. We're trying to push our mindset. It's trying to push our mindset. When you understand something logically, then you need to begin to submit towards that. And this on a smaller scale has been pushed down amongst Muslims as well. That these small things that you preach and you talk about, how important are they? How important is it to wear the hijab in the modern world today? How important is it to grow a beard as being a Muslim today? Not that Islam rests upon one's beard, but these are cliches and statements we find thrown around inside our society. How important is it? How important is it to look like a Muslim, to display yourself as a Muslim? This is the beginning of the spectrum. This is the beginning, then it goes to that extreme end. That why do we need to do these things today in the modern world? Why do we need to impress ourselves in such a manner inside the society? Why can't it be a personal relationship between myself and the Creator, between myself and Allah? Allah knows. Allah knows what my relationship with Him is. That religion is a private entity between you and God in your private hemisphere. It has no relationship outside. So outside, when you come outside, you do whatever you want to do. You do whatever you want to do. As long as you have those few moments of devotion to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's we can see now in Ramadan. There's nothing hidden. Look at the numbers of Ramadan plummeted. Plummeted from no space in Fajr to a few lines. Where are all these people gone? Where have they suddenly disappeared to? This shows our mindset that we're only trying to do certain things because we believe that at that moment in time, I'm going to be given those blessings of Ramadan. And rightfully, we ask Allah to give us those blessings. But what happens after Ramadan? Does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala change? Kalla wa hasha. Does Allah change? No, Allah doesn't change. Allah is there. It's the same Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who's there. So who changes? We change. That's what Allah mentioned. Inna Allah la yughayyiru ma biqawmin hatta yughayyiru ma bi anfusihim. Allah will never change a condition of a people until they don't change their own selves. Sunnat Allahi ala al-ard. Sunnah of Allah upon this earth. Allah doesn't change the state of a people until they don't make the steps to change themselves. So something that we're living through in our lives at the moment is our own fault. It's right on the top of the list that the suffering the Muslim Ummah is going through at the moment is our own fault. We need to get that inside our mind. That the problems that we're facing is my fault. My negligence, my disobedience, my lack of worship, my lack of commitment, my lack of upholding the Sharia of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has been clustered together. And that cluster, that storm, or that cloud has been placed where at the moment? It's placed in Palestine. So we can see it. We can visualize it, ignore them and their problems, so we can see that and begin to think, hang on. Why are they suffering? Why are they suffering? Am I a cause of that suffering? And yes, I am a cause of that suffering. That's what we should be thinking. I am a cause of that suffering. We as a whole Muslim Ummah collectively are a cause of that suffering. It's not them and us. It's not the Arab world and the other world. It's not that. We're all Muslims together. That's you find the Prophet as I'm speaking about the concept of this Ummah being one nation. Hadith al-Safina, the hadith of the ship. That we're all traveling together on this ship. And then some smart Muslim or some smart individual says, look, why should we go to the upper deck and ask the people above to help us? They have to pull the water, they give it to us on the lower deck. We don't need them. Let us just drill a hole on the bottom deck. Make a hole and we extract the water ourselves. So eventually water begins to seep into the ship. فَهَلَكُوا جَمِيعًا. They drown and they all drown. This is what we need to understand. They drown, we all drown. Not Palestine drowns and they're going to drown. We're all going to drown with them. That's what we need to understand as Muslims. So it's not Qadiyya that is Palestine, is them. It's when they drown, we're going to be drowning with them. Because we might be at the moment on the top of the ship. That we might think that we're in control. We might think we have that luxurious life. We have the good thing. We're so good Muslims. And those people in the lower deck, then they've passed through whatever's happened to them. They're rightfully so, that we may think. But water is seeping in. It's only a matter of time that the rest of us are going to drown. And the way that we're going to drown, because they may have died instantly. They've died instantly. And when you're drowning gradually, because there's going to be a gradual process that you're drowning in pain and suffer and anguish. And you're going to feel every single moment of it. They face it like a blinking of an eye. It's a blinking of an eye, spur of a moment. That's it, they've gone, finished. The rest is left for us to visualize that. To adapt our iman, our understanding what's going to take place. So nothing about Islam is trivial. We shouldn't think that something about Islam is trivial. If you can't do something, that's a different argument. Allah mentions in the Quran, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu udkhulu fi silmi kafatan wa la tattabi'u khutuwati shaitan innahu lakum aduwwun mubin. Or you believe, enter Islam wholeheartedly. Try your best. Try your best. Don't pick and choose about Islam. Try your best, you fall short, you make mistakes, get up and carry on. Don't try to separate it, that now this ruling is something good, this is something bad, this is a different environment, it's a different country. When I was back home, I used to do this. When I was in the masjid, I used to do this. When I was there, I used to do that. When I go to Mecca, I do that. But when I come here, I don't do that. If you go Mecca and wear hijab, everyone's wearing hijab. Everyone's wearing it. So there's nothing special you're doing there. Or when you're going there, everyone's praying, everyone's reading Quran, everyone's doing those good actions. But where's the impact of that after? Where's the impact after Ramadan? That's what ulama have discussed. They said, a signs of your Ramadan being accepted, that after Ramadan, you're still trying your best. Obviously, it won't be the same level, but you're still trying. That's a sign that your Ramadan has been accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept all of our Ramadan. That's what we should be praying for and asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what one of the first du'as inside the Quran, رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ وَتُبْ عَلَيْنَا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ التَّوَّابُ الرَّحِيمُ. Allah accept it from us. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts the person who's trying that journey towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Likewise, Allah mentioned these commandments. Another thing that falls into the Muslim world at the moment, as Muslims, is understanding the wisdom. When I understand the wisdom of something, I will comply to it. So when I know the wisdom of wearing the hijab, I'll wear the hijab. When I know the wisdom of doing this action, I'll do it inside my life. When lahmul khinzir, when the flesh of the swine was made haram, or when khamar was made haram, alcohol was made haram, did the companions wait and say, should we decipher the wisdom? Let us find out the wisdom, and then we'll adopt this inside our life. وَقَالُوا سَمِعْنَا وَأَطَعْنَا. They said, we hear and we obey. We're the ones following the same trajectory of saying, وَقَالُوا سَمِعْنَا وَأَصَيْنَا. We hear and we disobey. Because their disobedience leads them. Look at their questioning, their rationale. In the Quran, يَدُ اللَّهِ مَغْلُولًا. They say Allah's hands are tied up. إِنَّ اللَّهَ فَقِيرٌ وَنَحْنُ أَغْنِيَاءٌ. Allah is poor, we're rich. These are their statements that Allah's documented inside the Quran. That's why you could see how atrocities begin to take place. The creation is nothing. That's why there's no humanity. Because if you can against the supreme creator, against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what's the creation then? What is the creation? Nothing. You could do as you will to the creation. Because you believe that you're even beyond the creator, you're beyond Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's the beginning of this mindset that we find. That's that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lays down the foundation inside the Quran. To help us to understand that all these amthal inside the Quran, all what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions inside the Quran. That's why Allah begins the Quran by saying, Alif Lam Mim Dhalika al-Kitabu la rayba fihi. There's no doubt in the Quran. Fihi, then Allah qira'ah defined, fihi hudan lil muttaqin. In it, inside the Quran is guidance for the pious people. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is beginning the Quran that you should never have any doubt. Whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned inside the Quran, we may not understand it at moments inside our life. But the beginning stage is removing that doubt. There's nothing doubtful about the Quran. Then Allah mentioned the first ayah inside the Quran of ayatul tahaddi. Some verse 21 or so of challenging mankind. وَإِن كُنْتُمْ فِي رَيْبٍ مِمَّا نَزَّلْنَا عَلَىٰ عَبْدِنَا فَأْتُوا بِسُورَةٍ مِّن مِثْلِهِ. If you have any doubt upon what that will be set down upon our servant, bring one surah like unto it. فَإِن لَمْ تَفْعَلُوا وَلَنْ تَفْعَلُوا. You can't do it. That's not what Allah says. فَإِن لَمْ تَفْعَلُوا وَلَنْ تَفْعَلُوا. And you can never ever do it. That's how the Quran is beginning. That you can never ever bring something like the Quran. No matter what you do. This is the psyche of the Quran. This is the beginning of the Quran. That means that whatever comes next now, we should be able to adapt that inside our lives. We shouldn't have this questioning that why is Allah saying this? Why did Allah say that there? Why did Allah speak about this there? Why is that there for in that passage inside the Quran? وَلَوْ كَانَ مِنْ عِنْدِ غَيْرِ اللَّهِ لَوَجَدُوا فِيهِ اخْتِلَافًا كَثِيرًا أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ. Quran is how the verse begins. Don't they ponder over the Quran? If there have been any discrepancies that this is from other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you would have found it. You would have found it. And then place the Quran, Allah mentioned, أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ أَمْ عَلَىٰ قُلُوبٍ أَقْفَالُهَا. Why don't they ponder over the Quran? Are there shackles, chains placed upon their hearts? They can't read into the Quran. They can't see the Quran. Because the environment around us is what is it creating? It's an ancient book. Is it relevant to today's time? To the world at the moment we live in? Should we really practice this book? Should we just recite the book? Should we just give a recital of the book? So we just read the Quran when a person is born, when a person dies, when a person gets married. That's it. That's not the Quran. شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن hudan linnas. Look at the language of the Quran. Allah said, we sent down the Quran the month of Ramadan, hudan linnasi, guidance for people. Allah didn't say hudan lil mayyiteen, guidance for dead people or when people pass away. Look at that community. People flock. Oh, we read 100 Qurans for this dead person. Sorry to burst your bubble, but there's no strong Islamic evidence to prove that those 100 Qurans reward will be given to that dead person. If you want to do it, that's your choice. But Islamically, there's categorically no clear evidence that reciting the Quran for a dead person, that reward will be transferred to that dead person. Read the works of the fuqaha. There's no categoric evidence for that. It's all interpretations that they find that they possibly, because it's sadaqah jariyah. There's no clear text to prove that point. But why now? Why now are you rushing to read 100 Qurans for a person who's passed away? Why are you doing that now for? So why are we praying? Why are we praying on a daily basis then? If I'm a millionaire, I may as well tell everybody inside society, you know, when I pass away, can everybody in my community read Quran for me and give me that reward? Can it be transferred over to me? Once again, our psyche, our logic, that is someone else's responsibility to take care of my good deeds. It's not somebody else's responsibility. Yes, they can make dua for you. They can do some sadaqah for you. We don't deny the fact. But to believe the whole concept that this is the Quran, people collect the Quran and put it on the bride and the bridegroom on the day they're getting married. Place it on their head. This is barakah. Barakah doesn't come in your life by holding the Quran. Maybe somewhere far down the line, you give that respect to the Quran. Yes, some barakah, but that's not the initial point. That you place it on a woman's head or the man's head and they're going to be protected in their marriage and their life and everything around them is muharramat. That everything is haram around there, and you're saying, look, now for this few seconds, this ritual practice that we're going to do. So the Quran begins by highlighting this deep conviction in the spirit of the Quran, what the Quran is telling us to do. There's ulama mentioned these ayat, ajzul bashar, that no human being is able to bring something like the Quran. Wal al-hadir wal al-mustaqbil. Neither in the present time, neither in the future, no one can make a challenge of the Quran. Other ulama, they mention, Ibn Kathir mentions, tahadda'um al-Quran. The Quran challenged them, hum afsahul umam. They're the most eloquent of people, wa ma'hadha ajazu. The most eloquent of speech of people in the Arabic language at that time were the Quraysh. The most pure, pristine Arabic language they spoke. And they were unable to challenge the Quran. They were unable to challenge, bring anything like the Quran. Shows all the miraculous nature of the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah mentioned Surah Al-Isra, they don't bring an example. وَلَوْ كَانَ بَعْدُمْ لِبَعْدٍ ظَهِيرًا. Even though one upon another, they try to help one another. Just like these people sit down every single day, trying to find a mistake in the Quran, trying to find something inside the hadith, trying to find something. They can't do it. Baseless arguments that they bring, that even a child can say, this is not the response to what you're trying to bring inside society about the Quran. Also that we find stranger is that these same people at the peak, that this is their daily speech and their daily language, they're asking these questions. That why is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaking about the ba'uda, about the mosquito, about al-nahl, about the bee, about the fly, about al-ankabut, about the spider? Why is Allah speaking about this? It's quite strange that they're eloquent in the Arabic language and they use these parables. They use these amthal in their own speech on a daily basis. And now they try to say, why is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaking like in this manner inside the Quran? That's what Allah mentioned. Inna Allah la yastahi an yadriba mathalan ma ba'udatan fama fawqaha. Allah doesn't shy away from the fact to give the example of a mosquito, that which is less than or that which is above it. That's what we mentioned in introduction, that when you read certain passages inside the Quran, if you can't understand it, shelve it. Don't try to question it, because there is an answer somewhere there that exists. But you have to develop your mind and develop your reading to understand what the answer is. But most of the Quran is categorically clear. So this is one of those instances that these people, as Imam Tabari narrates, they began to pose this question. Why is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaking about the mosquito? Why is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala discussing this? Inna Allah la yastahyi. Allah isn't shy. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't hide away from anything. That's why our deen, our way of life, it engages every single aspect. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ya'lamu man khalaqa wal latiful khabir. Does not Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala know what He has created? He's the most subtle, the most aware. That's why you find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, ذَلِكُمْ كَانَ يُؤْذِي النَّبِيِّ فَيَسْتَحْيِي مِنْكُمْ وَاللَّهُ لَا يَسْتَحْيِي مِنَ الْحَقِّ. So you look at the context, the Prophet should come and sit and eat with him. He felt shy that people should get up and leave him in his private domains on his own. He was shy to do that. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَاللَّهُ لَا يَسْتَحْيِي مِنَ الْحَقِّ. Allah speaks the truth. Tells that leave the Prophet, leave him alone. And this is a moment for him to be alone, etc. with his family members that we find. That's when the inner theme of this surah, these ayats and Surah Al-Ahzab, is implementation of the Sunnah. Removal of fear, blame and concern of people. Not to be shy of people. Worried about people. What will people? That's another thing that many people come. As Muslims, I'm shy. I'm shy what my parents will say. Your parents are Muslim. And you're shy what your parents will say about you practicing your faith or you being a Muslim. Yeah, there could be some elements some of us are shy about. What should we be shy about? If you understand what your creed, your belief is, do these people feel shy? Do they feel themselves taken aback in the things that they do? They're proud. They're proud what they do. Full of pride, as they say, what they believe in. So why shouldn't we be proud? Or the things that we believe in. That's why an individual came to Salman al-Farisi and said to him, قِيلَ لِسَلْمَانَ قَدْ عَلَّمَكُمْ نَبِيُّكُمْ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ. In today's language, trying to have a dig at him. No, your prophet, he taught you everything. He even taught you hatta al-khira'ata. He even taught you how to defecate, to go to the toilet. Do you think Salman al-Farisi, he stood back and said, it's not appropriate, the world that we live in at the moment, maybe the Arab, they practice act, but, there's not something that we should be doing at the moment. What did he say to him? With all conviction, yes, he told us. He told us to squat down, not to use our right hand, not to face the Qibla, to cover ourselves, to wash ourselves appropriately. He didn't shy away from the fact. That's why on the side point, read the journey of Salman al-Farisi, one of the most longest journeys of faith. One of the longest journeys of faith this individual went through. That's why he feels privileged to be with the Prophet. That's why you find that some non-Muslims, when they make that journey, come to Islam, they feel so privileged. As we Muslims still trying to search things about his life, they found it, they've grasped it. They found that love towards the Prophet ﷺ. النبي أولى بالمؤمنين من أنفسهم. The Prophet is more closer to believers than their own selves. As we chant his name, we sing his name, we praise his name. They found him. They found him. They found the Prophet because they found it inside his sunnah, inside his teachings. This is where the life of success is. And that's what the companions were. That throughout their life, they were just checking themselves that what am I missing inside my life to come even closer to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's why Islam is not a religion. Islam is not a religion. It's a way of life. Because religion means that, as we began with, that certain segments and portions inside the church, in the synagogue, in the temple, in the gurdwara, in the masjid, at that moment in time, you're religious. That's it. It has no impact on your daily life. Islam is a way of life. From the minute you wake up to the minute that you leave this dunya. It's a codification of everything that you need to do. And you mentioned the Quran discusses everything. Those affairs that people, they may shy away from. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes every intricate detail at times in a language which is beautiful. A language which is beautiful, it describes. Whether it be matrimonial life, نِسَاءَكُمْ حَرْثٌ لَكُمْ فَأْتُوا حَرْثَكُمْ أَنَّ شِئْتُمْ. Speaking about the beauty of relationship between the two spouses, the language the Quran uses. That they're a covering, a garment upon you, enshrouding one another. وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُمْ مَوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِقَوْمٍ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. Allah's placed love, affection. Allah didn't use the word hub, because love can be lustful, full of desires. وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُمْ مَوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً. Deep commitment, understanding, compassion, mercy. إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِقَوْمٍ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. In that are signs for people to ponder and to reflect that we find. Inna Allah la yastahi min al-haq thalatha marrat. In the hadith of Ibn Majah that we find. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, 3 times the Prophet mentioned it. Allah is not shy. That's why you find the sins and the vices inside that society. Why do they exist? Because we're not addressing what Islam tells us, the do's and the don'ts, and telling us where the limits are. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala highlights. Like what you find our mother Salma narrating about the condition of a woman, or when she needs to bathe herself, etc. That we find. It's all there, teaching. That's why most of the narrations that speak about the private life of the Prophet are narrated by Ummahatul Mu'mineen, are narrated by mothers. To show us this is how the Prophet ﷺ conducted himself, how he bathed himself, how he washed himself, how he's close to his family members, how he conducted himself. For what reason? For what reason? To teach us these etiquettes inside our life. Likewise, Babul Haya fil ilmi, in the quest of knowledge that we find. لا يتعلم المستحيي ولا متكبر. That's why Imam Bukhari places inside the Kitab al-Ilm. Read the whole Kitab al-Ilm of Imam Bukhari. Lovely ahadith inside there. And in there he highlights this from the student of Ibn Abbas. 2 people won't learn inside their life. Mustahi, a person who's shy, and a person who's arrogant. That's how Imam Bukhari calls the heading this chapter. If you're shy, you won't learn your faith. If you don't ask, you won't learn. And likewise, if you're arrogant, you don't ask, you won't learn. If you think that you know everything. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَالَّذِي أَخْرَجَكُم مِّن بُطُونِ أُمَّهَاتِكُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ شَيْئًا. Allah took us all out the wombs of our mothers. لَا تَعْلَمُونَ شَيْئًا. We didn't know anything. We didn't know anything. He gave us the faculty of hearing and seeing and comprehending. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ. Primarily for what purpose? To be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what knowledge is. As we began with, is gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you found that inside your life, that every time you read something and you become subservient, you feel that inside your heart, Ya Allah, I need to do this inside my life to obey you. It's my obedience towards you. That's knowledge. And as you mentioned many times, the concept of dua, that people making dua, just make dua, that I want this inside my life. Yes, do that in your life. But ulama have discussed the inner spirituality of dua. One of the key moments of dua is what? You're making dua, leave for what purpose? لِلتَّقَرُّبْ إِلَى اللَّهِ. To get closer to Allah. If you find that inside your dua, that I'm coming closer to you, Ya Rab, your dua is automatically answered. Whether it's answered in this world or not, that's irrelevant. Because you found that spiritual inner dimension of imploring and calling upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And likewise you find that Ibn Umar also narrates about knowing about the knowledge of the tree. The Prophet described by saying that he was shy to answer in front of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Another hadith speaks about shyness. Inna Allah hayyun karimun yastahyi idha rafa'a rajul ilayhi yadayhi an yardahuma khaibaini or sifran khaibatain. Some ulama begin to discuss the authenticity of the hadith, but in general it's acceptable. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is noble, feels shy, that befits His Majesty, to see that one of His servants raises his hands to Him and to return them empty-handed. Every time you raise your hands and you make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, every time you go into sujood and you're making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees that dua, hears that dua, feels shy to leave this person. That's what then you can read about. Maybe people say, why is my dua not answered? That's another topic of what can happen in response to your dua. The ayat begin to continue to help us understand what we began with. That those individuals, فَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا فَيَعْلَمُونَ أَنَّ الْحَقُّ مِنْ رَبِّهِمْ. Those who believe straight away, they believe straight away. They know these are ayat. This is the Quran from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I can't understand this passage or this verse at this moment in time, but this is the truth. This is something I have to submit to. وَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا فَيَقُولُونَ مَاذَا أَرَادَ اللَّهُ بِهَذَا مَثَلًا. As for those who disbelieve, say, why is Allah speaking about the mosquito? Why is Allah speaking about the fly? Why is Allah speaking about the bee? Why is Allah speaking about the spider? Why is Allah speaking about these trivial things? Just as we began with. This is the mindset of those people who don't want to accept the Quran. Don't want to come to the fountain of the Quran. That they raise these questions about the Quran. In essence, they raise these questions about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That what is the wisdom in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaking about this? And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in another place inside the Quran, Surah Al-Muddathir, speaks about the same doubt that these people have. When Allah mentioned alayya tis'ata ashar, upon hellfire is 19 angels. So now these people begin to take it literally and begin to start discussing the Quraysh that if it's only 19 angels, then we'll fight our way out of Jahannam. See the rationale, the mindset that they're thinking? They're not thinking. It's not about numeric format in the Quran. That's what ulama said. When it comes to numerics inside the Quran, don't get so bogged down about the numeric format. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can use any number, choose anything. So they're not understanding the concept that you're now in Jahannam, but you're busy discussing that how we're going to break free from Jahannam. Because only 19 angels that are surrounding it. That's not too difficult. We're the leaders of Quraysh. We fought battles and wars. We'll fight against them and come out of Jahannam is their mindset. كَذَلِكَ يُضِلُّ اللَّهُ مَنْ يَشَاءُ وَيَهْدِي مَنْ يَشَاءُ. That's how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends people astray and guides whomever He wants subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this place in Baqarah, يُضِلُّ بِهِ كَثِيرًا وَيَهْدِي بِهِ كَثِيرًا. Allah misguides many people by them not understanding the Quran. And He guides many people. وَمَا يُضِلُّ بِهِ إِلَّا الْفَاسِقِينَ. Only ones who go astray are al-fasiqeen. The clear meaning of al-fasiq is a person who moves away an ta'atillahi subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what fisq is. That you move away from the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what's going to happen. You don't have a conviction in the Quran. You don't believe these rules and regulations from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You don't believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to reward and punish. Then what begins to happen? You live a life of fisq, of disobedience. So you become more and more astray away from the path because you feel you don't need to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as we find inside Surah At-Tawbah, Allah mentioned those individuals, when the ayat are recited upon them, it increases them in iman. زَادَتْهُمْ هَذِي إِيمَانًا. When they hear the verse of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it increases in iman. For those individuals, فَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا فَزَادَتْهُمْ إِيمَانًا وَهُمْ يَسْتَبْشِرُونَ. They rejoice. وَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ فِي قُلُوبِهِم مَرَضٌ. Those individuals have a sickness inside their heart. فَزَادَتْهُمْ رِجْسًا إِلَى رِجْسِهِمْ. It increases them in their sickness. وَمَاتُوا وَهُمْ كَافِرُونَ. So that shak that doubt they have, it plays more inside their mind. So when they hear the ayat, they turn away more and more away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why we find al-fasiqeen. Allah doesn't leave it there. Allah then describes who these fasiqeen are. الَّذِينَ يَنْقُضُونَ أَحْدَ اللَّهِ مِنْ بَعْدِ مِيثَاقِهِ. These individuals, that after the covenant is made, they break the covenant. They break the ties, وَمَا أَمَرَ بِهِ, and you those ties they have to make those ties, whether it be ties of family members or ties of nations or tribes or whatever it may be, they break those ties. وَيُفْسِدُونَ فِي الْأَرْضِ. They create corruption upon the earth. أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْخَاسِرُونَ. These 3 or 4 traits, study them in the world today. Who's breaking the ties, covenants of the world? Who's spreading mischief upon the world? Who's creating turmoil upon the world at the moment? All these traits and characteristics that the Quran begins with. That's why the Quran is timeless. That people come again and again and we begin to unfortunately live to these traits that the Quran tells us to stay away from these traits. Those who violate Allah's covenant after it's been affirmed. Break whatever subhanahu wa ta'ala ties Allah has ordered to be maintained. And they spread corruption upon the face of the earth. All this is a prelude to what? Because after this, Allah then begins to mention with قَالَ رَبُّكَ لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ إِنِّي جَاعِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً. The angels then pose this question: are you going to place on the earth مَنْ يُفْسِدُ فِيهَا وَيَسْفِكُ الدِّمَاءَ? Are you going to place people on the earth who are going to spill blood and create corruption? You know, Quran is dynamic. The way it speaks about certain things, you ponder over it. All of this is a prelude that this is the human being asking these questions. Why is Allah doing all of this? Why has Allah created all of this? And then when it comes to the face of the earth, this is what the individual is going to do upon this land that we find. Thus we find that some people may take this in the wrong light. That from this example we can extract something. That for some of us Muslims, we're going to be discussing the blood of the mosquito. Is it pure or impure? Rightfully so, some things of fiqh have to be discussed accordingly. But right at this moment in time, some Muslims are still going to be discussing, here you can highlight, now you're discussing a trivial issue. You're discussing the blood of a mosquito over the blood of the Muslims. You're discussing that over the blood of the Muslims. That's why the Quran is unique in the way it approaches certain things. That it should make us in our thinking in our understanding the Quran was taking place around us. Thus we find that when Abdullah Mubarak, he wrote to Fudail ibn Iyad, he became an ascetic, a pious scholar that he became. And he wrote ththese famous lines, the Prophet, Ya Abil Haramain, La Absartana, or worshipper inside al-Haramain. In the priest, he became known, that is his title. Fudail ibn Iyad, that was title given to Abidul Haramain, the worship of the Haramain, who's prostrating and praying and doing all these righteous actions. لَعَلِمْتَ أَنَّكَ فِي الْعِبَادَةِ تَلْعَبَ. If you saw us in what we're doing inside our lives, the striving and the struggle that we're doing inside our lives, you're just playing with toys in your worship. You're just playing like a kid plays with toys. Fudail ibn Iyad is a great scholar in his own right. That's why he wept when his Risala came to him. He said that Abdullah Mubarak has spoken the truth. He's spoken the truth. I'm so bogged down in my own internal worship. And rightfully at moments we should be. But I can't seem to visualize that was beginning to take place. That's why in conclusion, no one should take this personally. But all of us, we read these ahadith. Ad-deenun nasiha. Deen is sincere advice. The companion said, Liman ya Rasulullah, to whom does advice need to be given? Lillahi wa li kitabi wa li rasulihi. Sincere advice meaning following the teachings that Allah has told us, following the Quran, following the Sunnah. And likewise he concluded by mentioning wa li a'immatil muslimin wa a'ammatihim. And to give advice to a'immatihim. A'imma means either the leaders or it means the scholars. Wa a'ammatihim, and the average people. Because the Prophet was generic inside his speech. He was generic. We're all human beings. We all need encouragement. We all need reminder. We all need to help one another. Why are we dragging out Islam? Why are we somewhere way in the back? Not worry, just as we began with that, this cause, this suffering, this hardship is going to affect all of us. And it is affecting all of us. But some of us still can't see it.